Okay, it's 7 o'clock. Call a regular meeting of the Buckhannon City Council to order. I ask you to join me in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. We'll respect the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, would you get the sign up sheet? Just get it out. You signed it? You did? Okay. Department Board Report, Michael Doss, City Administrator.
I'm going to wear several hats tonight. I'll be doing a report for Jerry Arnold and also Mitch Tacey, just to mention from Mitch. But as far as I'm concerned, you do have the financial report, revenues expense report ending May 31st, 2013. This will be the last report that you get. The next report you receive will be in July, which will just be a synopsis of our finances, the revenues and expenses for the entire 12-13 fiscal year. Points of reference are total revenues ending May 31st of 2013 are $3,278,421.32. Total expenses as of May 31st are $3,037,499.79, referencing the last page. For an overall revenue over expenditures of $240,921.53. If you'll notice, back to our revenue page, we have hit almost all of our revenue projections in our major revenues. We should be in really good shape ending out the year. And again, that'll afford us some opportunities when we get our final fund balance for the year to make some good decisions come July 1 with some monies. Do want to reference one item that is under me, Paula Moeller, West Virginia Army National Guard, USDA letter of agreement. It's actually a letter written from Dave McCauley, our attorney, to Paula Moeller in reference to some items that were required for our pre-closing, if you will. This had to do with the preliminary title opinion, right-of-way certification, and an opinion of our council relative to right-of-ways. I think that's more for informational, Dave. Yes. I do want to build upon that a little bit and advise council that even though it's a month later than I had anticipated, June 19th, there will be a pre-closing meeting with the USDA Bond Council regarding this conference center at Brushy Fork. That's June 19th. No council member needs to be in attendance. It's not necessary unless you'd just like to be there to watch us sign a bunch of documents. But all the appropriate parties and individuals will be present at, I think it's at 2 o'clock on June. So we'll finally wrap this thing up and close, start paying some bills, and have that end of our agreement taken care of. Another item of reference is under me is the Gateway East additional funding request. I want to mention something about that and advise you of this so you know what we're doing. As you know, we're set to any time, and Jay can elaborate on that a little bit more, to start on Gateway East, or our East Main Street project. The figures that were used when we did the initial application back in December 19th of 2008.
2009.
I got 2000. Okay, 2009. Sorry. The costs at that time were $217,168.50. Obviously, prices have changed between now and then, actually quite significantly. An updated cost estimate, $273,526.40, which is actually a difference, if you do the math, of $56,357.90. That's just because costs have increased over a period of roughly 4 years. Jay has been involved with this with the Division of Highways in trying to get some additional monies to offset those costs. It looks like they're pretty receptive to that. However, need to advise council of the following. Roughly, it's still an 80-20 grant, so the additional funds needed, again, in that amount of $56,357, or rounded up $57,000. 80% of that would be funded by the Division of Highways in addition to the monies they're already supplying with the grant, and a total of about $45,600. The catch here is that the city would still be responsible for the 20% of that 80-20, and that difference of roughly $57,000, which would roughly be $11,400. So basically, in a nutshell, this with costs going up from the grant application to award to actual costs and getting ready to start the project, the city of Buckhannon would be on the hook for an additional $11,000 to $12,000. And it's our 20% match of the additional monies needed to complete the project. Advising of this because we're already going down the road of doing this project. We're pretty much engaged and committed to that. So this amount will have to be something that will need to be considered and approved by council, and will be a necessary budget adjustment come July 1.
Do you need a motion to proceed on this?
Yes. I guess the motion would be to incur the additional costs to complete the Gateway East project at 20% of the city's responsibility, or roughly. Pretty confident in that number?
Yes, I mean, they actually rounded it up from 56 to 57. The city's right now committed to 47,000, just under. This would bring it to 58.8, with the 20% match. If we choose not to, then we pay the additional 57,000. So I think it's a
no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer.
Entertain a motion to approve this
So moved.
modification to the grant.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it.
Carrying on, a couple other items of interest. We did finally receive our FEMA reimbursement money for the Sandy storm. As a note in general fund under street, the street received $9,248.13. And for those folks in council that are on the water board for the public at home, the water department received $5,694.79. Total Hurricane Sandy, or Superstorm Sandy, I think is what they call it when it hit here, was $14,942.92. We're in receipt of that money. That should take care of all of our disasters. Knock on wood. The final item is kind of dealing with Mitch Tacey. When you'll recall, we had our joint meeting with the Upshur County Commission. There was discussion towards the end under Mitch about some kind of disagreements, if you will, points of contention about the GIS mapping that was conducted by Upshur County. We are in the process, I'm working with Megan Pomeroy, who's their new county administrator, and Dave McCauley, and looking at their MOU agreement and trying to find a resolution for that. Because again, Mitch is absolutely correct. It is in the name of public safety, and it's something we need to get resolved. I feel fairly confident with some new information that we can get that resolved hopefully sooner than later, and get that information disseminated to our public safety individuals. So that is a good thing. I will start now with Arnold's report.
Question.
Sure. Sorry.
On the guard agreement, USDA agreement, email said that did I miss you saying we had a council meeting on the 17th?
Well, actually, we have a building commission meeting.
Okay.
And that is on the 17th at, I think, 6 o'clock,
Yeah.
just for building commission members. And then on the 19th is what they call a pre-closing.
Yeah, okay.
And that's where you, Rich.
That meeting, neither one of those meetings would require attendance of council?
No,
Okay.
no.
Thank you.
Any other questions on my report or Mitch's before I go into Jerry?
You, Michael, will come to the council the first meeting in July and make suggestions in regard to, you said if we have some excess resources, which we will, how we can look at those and spend them.
Yes.
Or put them in a rainy day fund or what have you. But again, would have you take a serious look at paying off some debt that's in excess of 4, 5, 6%.
Yeah, we're going to, obviously, we made that commitment for that additional 20% tonight. So, we'll have to put that in the equation. And there were several items that were tabled, if you will, as you recall, Dave, during our budget meetings. And then we have maybe some litigation that we may need to be mindful of putting some money back for that as well.
And your expenditure report tonight included the transfer already to the account?
No, I'm getting ready to make that transfer.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. Under Street and Waste, Jerry Arnold's report. Under Consolidated Public Works Board, the financial report checking was $71,491.41. Our cemetery CD was $225,538.17. The Consolidated Public Works Board did approve a 2012-13 budget revision, and they also did approve the 2013-14 budget. Sam Ludlow, city engineer, reported on connecting storm drains on Marion Street to the new Buckhannon Street storm sewer. Sam also reported that his crew would be moving on to Fayette. I believe they're starting to mobilize there today and tomorrow. Jerry also reported that he hired Travis Carpenter to replace a vacant position. This was formerly from a former employee in the street department. He also reported on Pocahontas street curb work, which is actually finished. The Upshur County Sheriff's Department presented a training on how to identify and handle encounters with meth labs to the street and waste department personnel. Jerry reported that that was very, very informative, especially incidents down at the walk trail. Under board member comments, Mr. Thomas commented on complaints about vehicles being towed by Curry Towing from private parking lots during the Strawberry Festival activities, and Mr. Thomas felt that council should have been made aware of this. This was going to happen. I believe Mr. McCauley is going to talk a little bit about that tonight in the memo. Jerry Arnold also stated that he's been in conversation with festival officials and others regarding the situation, ways to always make continuous improvements with Strawberry Festival as it relates to the city of Buckhannon. Mayor Davidson stated that he'd been trying to gather some information about the towing situation. I didn't want to make any accusations until he had further information. Mr. Thomas remarked that he had a telephone solicitation from the FOP regarding the Christmas fund. He wanted to make citizens aware that it was only about 50% that actually go towards the fund. Mr. Thomas also wanted to clarify that he voted no on the budget. This is Jerry's report. He explained that he was not aware that board members were being paid to serve on boards. He does not think that board members should be compensated and should have term limits. Mr. Waldo, who's a member of the Consolidated Board, agreed. Mr. Waltz commented favorably on the Strawberry Festival activities and by the good work of the street department. Also commented that he saw a lot of smokers. Again, Jerry's report, not mine. Mr. Waldo, again, member of the Consolidated Public Works Commission, stated that he was at City Park and saw some of the playground equipment was in need of attention. Some of the older equipment need to be taken down. Mayor Davidson explained that he and Jerry had discussed some plans to improve the playground areas. There was no other further business transacted. The meeting ended at 4:33 p.m. Waste Board meeting was today. Jerry did present, he's got it under me. I presented the financial report. There was a 2012-13 budget revision which was approved by the Waste Board. There was a discussion of compensation of an office employee that is employed under Waste. They did open trailer bids, and Jerry will probably report on that at a future meeting. Jerry did request that there be approval to purchase a pallet wrapper at a cost of approximately $5,000 to aid with the recycling of e-waste. And he did seek approval for an ad to bid on the specifications for an air curtain incinerator. Jerry did report on repairs made to a couple of waste collection trucks, notified customers that waste collection could not dump on heavy-made cans intended for use with a cart tipper. Going to get some information disseminating out with that information. And there was an ongoing customer complaint about waste collection trucks dipping water, or dripping water, yes, dipping. Under council, the crew continues to work on Pocahontas. They've excavated approximately 1,885 cubic yards of material and backfill, and will be compacting the street before paving can be completed. Jerry has submitted council's request for the Main Street light to the West Virginia Department of Highways Traffic Engineering and is awaiting their response. And the street department just purchased a 2007 ODB leaf vac from Fairfax County, Virginia. The vac was actually on an online auction, and they were able to purchase it for $4,200. The cost of a new unit is $23,000. Certainly, this leaf vac will enhance our leaf collection services in the fall and any cleanup activities after parades, and will also assist with cleaning out catch basins. A little side note on that, when this was up for bid and we happened to notice this, we did some comparison of other leaf vac equipment similar to this, actually same brand. We did discover one that was a 2005 model, had about 100 hours less on it, and that sold for $4,900. Jerry and Lowell went and picked it up earlier this week, brought it back, and it is in great working condition, and we're looking forward to having that out in the fall for our leaf service. Any questions on Jerry's report? I'll try to answer those. Or forward those to Jerry.
Hear none.
That is all of my report.
Okay, you have Mitch's report as well, you said?
No, Mitch just wanted me to bring up the working with Mr. McCauley and the county on an MOU and trying to have a resolution with this mapping.
Jay Holland, civil engineer.
Rich, I will try to be quick. I only have 3 projects to report on today. Army National Guard, I presented to you all last week at our joint City Council, County Commission meeting, just to rehash and go over some updated information. The waterline project's approximately 26% complete now. They're making progress now that they've, made the beginning tie-in and the end tie-in and working in the middle. They're really just working through open fields right now, so production has picked up. The contractor is still continuing his work at the building pad site. As I reported, the unsatisfactory material, because it was too wet, it has forced them to undercut the building pad, and that's what they spent the last week and a half, even through yesterday as I was leaving town. Coming that way, they were still working on the undercutting procedures and then placing the backfill in, at the specified compaction requirements, and it's slow in coming out of the ground, but you have to have the foundations correct or else you're going to have some issues. So they're doing that right. That's really the Guard update. If you all want specifics, I can give those to you. Michael did such a great job on Gateway East on the budget adjustment. I was talking with the project manager over the past 17 months, and I said, Mark, is there any chance for us to submit a budget adjustment? I mean, the quantities haven't changed, but yet the prices keep going up. And he said, well, I can't guarantee anything, but go ahead and submit it. And then I got a nice email Sunday afternoon saying that they were going to approve our budget adjustment, and so that was nice. I reported the last time that the city, SHPO, Federal Highways Administration, and the DOH have entered into the Memorandum of Understanding, and there were a list of items that we had to work on. The WPA era sidewalks had to be photographed and documented. Rich took care of that. A historical property inventory form had to be completed and submitted, which it was. All available historical images had to be reproduced and included in the documentation package to the West Virginia DOH and SHPO. It was. Site plan was prepared showing the location of the sidewalks. A bibliography of the sources of information had to be included. And we haven't got to step 6, but the insignias, of course, would be taken out and put at the City Hall and library locations. The first 5 items were taken care of internally, and there were just a few comments back, and I'll let Rich interject at any time that he feels that he would like to, but they're just some minor adjustments. I want to say they're minor because they don't involve me this time. But we're still shooting for that July 1st. She said if we can get that information in within the next week, we'll probably have that July 1st notice to proceed. So I kind of threw that out there for Mr. Clemens. That's really where we are. Michael's talked about the supplemental money agreement. Finally, Route 20/McDonald's, that's what we've all called it, the lane widening project. The West Virginia DOH has begun their detailed engineering on the alternate number 1, which is the widening of the road, sidewalks both sides, the third turning lane from Victoria Street down to Marion Street, in excess of $1.4 million. But in order for them to give us updated costs and detailed drawings, they've asked the water department and the sewer department to do a detailed locate on all existing utilities as best they can, so that they, avoid any, there's going to be some unforeseen things pop up, but they want to try to eliminate as many as possible and get a good handle on the costs and what's it going to take to construct this project. So they've asked us for that. The water department completed their detailed locate yesterday, and I've got that map ready to submit to the DOH. Sam and I are going to go out next week, do the water and the storm. We'll hand that over to them, the DOH. They'll do their detailed design, and speaking with the project manager, they're still on target for May of next year to begin construction, after the Strawberry Festival.
I have a question about it. From previous reports on this, there's an issue with those hedges at the home at the corner of Victoria and Route 20. Can you, that home is owned by Dr. Kirk, Michael Kirk, and he's not, and I've just kind of mentioned to him that, hey, your hedges, have caused some, issue. He was completely, he had no idea about any of the thing. And for what it's worth, I think it might be fruitful to maybe have a conversation with him. But even before we get to that point, is there still a hang-up with that?
Boy, I wish I could remember the key phrase, but they were a contributing element to the historical significance, to the historical structure at that,
Right.
Even though they weren't there when the house was constructed, they are now considered a contributing element
Right.
to the historical significance. So they were causing some problems from the SHPO historical preservation, and from the DOH also has a division of preservation. They were causing some issues there. But the mayor, and I don't want to drag him in, you can comment whenever though, had a conversation with the landowner. I don't know if it was Mr. Kirk, but maybe it was.
I talked to the boss. I was talking.
You talked to the missus?
I talked to Elaine, yeah.
Okay, and she was saying that, she would like to see the shrubs, I'm paraphrasing, the shrubs removed. They are not that important to her, and we had talked and
Well, certainly, I don't want to, I'm not in a position to speak for the Kirks by any means, but I've talked to them a couple of times about this, and I think there is certainly a willingness to, talk about this, and I don't think there's no principled objection to, doing what's necessary to, help the project along, but it probably, but some kind of
contact
real
from us.
engagement with them, because, frankly, if they wanted to take them down, I'm sure they could take them down, take a chainsaw to them, and nobody can tell them otherwise.
Yes, we've talked about that, and that has been discussed internally, but we have not approached them yet, because we were wanting to see where this went.
Sure.
But that was the DOH's concern and SHPO's concern with the shrubs. But from what I'm gathering, that is not an issue from the property owner's side,
No, that's right. So, whenever the time comes, it's
that may
very
become a moot
fruitful
point.
hopefully it becomes a moot point. That if not, that will not be a hang-up, I guess, from my perspective. I just told them I'd bring that up to you next time.
We have discussed that particular situation, just haven't moved forward on it yet.
I think we discussed it in the consolidated board meeting, actually, also. If I recall.
That's all I have.
Any other questions for Jay?
Mayor, I'd like to make a comment, kind of commending Jay and all the heck that we give him sometimes. In regards to the transportation enhancement grant, it's sometimes like squeezing blood out of a turnip to get additional funds once you go and apply for a grant. And him being successful as project manager and getting those additional funds, sometimes hard to do. So that's a pretty big accomplishment, I feel, in getting additional funds for that. So.
And Jay, that's the last one.
That's the last one I get, you know the saying, you don't get one of those.
No, not really. I know it's difficult to get additional funds sometimes.
Well, the fiscal year's almost over, so you may get another one next fiscal year.
Brings us to Rich Clemens, Family Housing, or any other comments?
A couple of items here. One is we've had quite a flurry of activity construction-wise. So again, zoning permits, building permits required for just about anything that happens inside the city. If it's a case where it happens to be in a flood zone, that requires additional time, additional paperwork that needs to be completed. Frequently, we get these requests in where, gee, I need this right now because so-and-so's here and somebody's going to help me. Well, some cases, if it's pretty simple, that's not impossible. But if you've got any sizable project at all, please come in ahead of time and try to get the paperwork completed, move ahead from there. And pay the B&O tax.
How does zoning appeals thing go with it?
Yeah, I'm required to include as part of your minutes, the Zoning Board of Appeals did meet Tuesday evening, and they heard 3 variances. They only meet on demand, and it's been some time since they had a meeting, but at this particular meeting, there were 3 requests for variances. One for sign on Main Street was approved. One for a change in terms of requirements for zoning within residential area. That was approved. And the third was for conversion of a storage building to I should say the one in between there was not residential area. It was what we call permanent preserve area, where the college is building some additions to a softball field, and they had a side yard issue. The third was construction of a apartment from a storage building in the rear of a piece of property, and because of the lot size not being sufficient to house a second family, that was denied. But those were held last Tuesday. That's all I have.
Question for Rich? David Cole.
Thank you, Mayor. A number of things to bring council up on. One of the controversial things of the last couple of 3 weeks involved the towing emanating out of the Strawberry Festival. And so that we're all on the same page and everyone is aware of what was done, what has been done, what could be done. I've put it all in a memo. I'll read quickly. Obviously, to members of council, Mr. Doss and City Police Chief Matt Gregory, from me today's date regarding towing by Curry's Rollback Services of Burnsville during 2013 Strawberry Festival. As I think everyone is aware by now, there was a lot of commotion generated during the recently concluded Strawberry Festival concerning the towing of vehicles by Curry's Rollback Services of Burnsville, West Virginia. Given the continued discussion about the matter and the lingering ire of many who had their vehicles towed, I contacted the West Virginia Public Service Commission for additional information. At the outset, I'd be remiss if I didn't observe the prompt intervention into this matter by city officials as this issue was first identified. Mayor Davidson came to my home Wednesday evening, May 15, immediately after the Queen's coronation at Wesleyan College to discuss this matter that he had just learned about. I promptly commenced some legal research concerning the regulation of towing enterprises in West Virginia and determined that it was at least partially regulated by the West Virginia Public Service Commission. I provided that information the same evening to the mayor. The next morning, Michael Doss, Chief Gregory, and I met at City Hall with officials of the festival to discuss the matter. Mayor Davidson also had additional conversations with festival officials. Later on Thursday, a press release prepared by Mr. Doss was issued by our city concerning the matter and alerting festival visitors, and particularly carnival attendees, to the possibility of their vehicles being towed if they parked on private property. City officials learned that several Buckhannon businesses apparently had been approached by Curry's, and allegedly 22 contracts were signed by these businesses authorizing the towing. I understand that by Friday, May 17, Curry's departed Buckhannon for the duration of the festival. I contacted the West Virginia Public Service Commission and spoke with PSC Representative Stacy Beller, who I learned had been involved in and these were his adjective, thorough PSC investigation into Curry's activities in Buckhannon. Beller referred to the activities in Buckhannon as being, quote-unquote, third-party towings. In other words, Curry's and various Buckhannon businesses, as second parties, collaborated to tow third parties' vehicles. That is, the owners of the vehicles did not request their own vehicles to be towed due to accident or mechanical problems. Mr. Beller further informed me that the PSC intervenes in third-party towings only to the extent of investigating complaints about towing companies charging fees in excess of those permitted by state law. When I specifically asked Mr. Beller if the PSC had received copies of the contracts between Curry's and the Buckhannon businesses, he responded negatively. One of our council members had suggested acquiring copies of the Curry's contracts, but since both the towing enterprise and the private property owners are private properties, nothing such as a Freedom of Information Act request is applicable to a situation such as this. Mr. Beller informed me that the PSC investigation found no violations of law by Curry's and that the fees charged by Curry's for festival towings were within the state permitted limits. Mr. Beller analogized the festival situation with another common source of towing complaints out of Morgantown, where apartment complex owners frequently have non-resident student vehicles towed all the time. Furthermore, the contracts in third-party towing situations, as a matter of law, do not have to be in writing and often are verbal. When I explained to Mr. Beller that it had been reported that at least one business identified as having contracted with Curry's subsequently denied that such a contract existed, he informed me that such was beyond the purview of PSC jurisdiction, adding that it was entirely a civil matter between the party whose vehicle was wrongfully towed and the towing company. He explained that the PSC does not get involved with those kind of he said incidents, and that the recourse of a person whose vehicle was wrongfully towed would be a civil suit. In a nutshell, it seems that the PSC investigation into the 2013 Strawberry Festival complaints generally was limited to confirming that Curry's did not charge rates exceeding those set by law. Had Curry's charged an amount exceeding the state limit, Mr. Beller confirmed that they would have been subject to fines and suspension. I inquired about municipalities' opportunity to also engage in licensure and regulation of towing companies, and Mr. Beller indicated that in absence of the state legislature expressly authorizing such, that the PSC's position traditionally has been that the exclusive licensing and regulatory authority for towing companies is the PSC. He also indicated that if there were to be any such ordinance adopted by Buckhannon, that the PSC certainly would want to examine it. Municipalities essentially have no more authority to control towing as they do to unilaterally implement utility rates without prior PSC approval. Mr. Beller suggested that in the future, that festival and city officials try to work together with private property owners to develop a comprehensive festival parking plan to ease resident and visitor frustrations with being towed for parking in prohibited areas. Mr. Beller again offered an analogy saying the festival towing situation was like someone coming into your home without permission, and then when authorities escort them out, the trespasser complains about having been mistreated. He also mentioned that the PSC investigation established that the private property owners here had in fact posted their properties as no parking or customer parking only. The state of West Virginia clearly does not regulate towing services as rigidly as some other states do. There also is some federal licensure involved with enterprises of this sort, and I found that Curry's rollback services is licensed by the United States Department of Transportation, and their federal number is USDOT 1856586. I recommend to improve parking for future festivals that, one, our city and festival officials identify sanctioned festival parking for or not for a fee, and then clearly post those parking opportunities, and as much as possible, identify parking partners in publications and maps printed well in advance of the festival's commencement. Perhaps festival or other volunteers could be stationed at these locations to collect the fees, and then those fees collected could be divided pursuant to an agreed formula. 2, another possibility would be to partner with Westland and to have a shuttle bus take visitors back and forth between our downtown and the college campus. There are hundreds of parking spaces available just a few blocks away at WVWC. 3, one other suggestion would be to consider dismantlement of the former skate park fence at the public safety complex site, where 40 more parking spaces would be realized directly across the street from the carnival venue in and around Jawboone Park. With a fee of $10 per day for those 40 coveted spots, and for the Tuesday through Sunday carnival cycle, such a parking opportunity could generate at least $2,400 during the festival and possibly during Gamble Amusements Week return each fall too. I hope this memorandum helps everyone to better understand the issues involving towing during our Strawberry Festival. So in a nutshell, as we had pretty much anticipated from our looking at the statutes and in talking with the folks at the PSC prior to my formal connectedness with them, we can't do very much. It's a state-regulated enterprise.
A couple things. One, the recommendations that are made in the memo, I think they're good and prudent. I think they should be looked at. I take a great deal of issue with the PSC in this response. I find it to be disappointing and inadequate, and I think Mr. Beller's analogies are frankly a little condescending. The situation that we have here is not like somebody coming into your home without permission and then complaining when they're escorted out by the authorities, because the issue that I'm primarily concerned about is that the towing company, we don't know, especially in the case of Los Trancas situation, we don't know that they're the authorized representatives. The PSC's response doesn't say that we can't pass an ordinance. They just say that they would want to see an ordinance. But I would recommend one of two things. I guess first of all, I'd like to see us address this issue by requiring third-party tows to be substantiated with a written contract, and that written contract deposited with the 911 center, so that if somebody if there's a question, that I have no objection to private property owners having unauthorized vehicles towed off of the premises. I think they have every right to do that. I think they should do that, and they should be free to do that. I'm greatly concerned about operations like this that seem to be or operate like fly-by-night operations, where they sweep in with 6 or 7 guys and tow as many people as they can, and look like they're trying to be on television or something. But if we don't have the authority to pass an ordinance requiring a written contract on third-party tows, then I think we certainly can address or entertain a resolution asking the PSC to address that issue, and the PSC has the authority, I assume the PSC has the authority to require written contracts on third-party tows. If not, then it becomes an issue for the legislature, and then it's out of our hands. But at a minimum, I think we should encourage the PSC to not simply it seems like the PSC is saying, well, that's just the way it is, and there's really nothing we can do about it. I mean, the fact is that there's plenty they can do about it. If they're willing. If they're not willing, that's an issue. That's one thing, if they're not willing. But if they are willing, they likely have the authority. And all I'm saying is that when you have a situation where we shouldn't have, where people are being towed and being faced with tow bills and impound fees that range in the hundreds of dollars. You can't go and tell them, we'll go file a civil suit. Well, first of all, they probably don't have the money to afford the filing fee for a civil suit. And then if they want to be represented, that's wholly inadequate to the problem. If there's a he said problem, and I think there is, and we have it right here across the street with the Los Trancas parking lot. All we have to do is say, here's the paper. And it doesn't have to be a big file. It can be a single piece of paper that just demonstrates conclusively that the towing company in question has the authority from the property owner or the property owner's lessee or the property owner's representative or whatever to engage in third-party tows. And And that's really all we're talking about here. But, I mean, I'm grateful for the PSC and the willingness to look into this, but I don't think this is like, I don't think these situations that Mr. Beller's offering are analogous at all. And I think at a minimum, we should, entertain a resolution to encourage the PSC to take this action. But that's the body's decision. But I'd like to, investigate. Just because the PSC doesn't say we couldn't do it. They just say that it's not. They'd want to look at it. Is that right? Or did you get the feeling that this is they say definitely no, or we'd rather you didn't, or we don't know? I mean,
I don't know if there's been a whole lot of municipal attempts at an ordinance such as what you're talking about. So I'm hesitant to guess how they would receive something like that.
Okay.
It's just been pretty much understood that since it is under the legislatively, there's a statute that authorizes
understand
the
the concept
PSC to
of,
regulate this.
preemptive jurisdiction.
He compared it to
utility rates.
utilities.
And that's,
We say we're going to charge whatever we want to for water, sewage. No, we will tell you whether your
Sure.
proposed rates are okay or not.
Right.
So that's kind of.
and I can agree with that analogy, but we're not talking about setting rates, or we're not talking about, we're not even talking about really regulating. What we're saying is that if there's a third-party tow, you have to have your authority in writing, and it has to be deposited with whomever, the 911 center, I think would be the logical, place to do it. But,
My understanding, Tom, is that the company was the one that initiated the contacts
Yeah.
with the property owners. And this happened to an organization that I'm involved with. The Mountain Cap had a similar situation in Sutton, where I got a phone call one evening from several people irate that their cars were towed away from a parking lot that we had a piece of property there, and I knew nothing about it. Somebody, unfortunately, in the office signed the contract. I authorized the agents to reimburse the towing costs. We got the vehicles back at nobody's expense. But again, that was initiated by the contractor. And what I'm disappointed in is the lack of consideration and sensitivity of evidently 22 property owners that decided to go ahead and engage with this individual with what I consider a lack of proper, consideration and sensitivity to give a notice out there, say, if you do this again in the next 30 days, we're going to start towing cars and so forth. Unfortunately, the PSC can't investigate stupidity, because I wish they could. But it's very it dismays me that 22 property businesses would do this on the weekend that we try to encourage visitors to this town. And what kind of taste in their mouth do they have after their toes are carted away?
Well, David, and I understand that some of the businesses were closed, and it didn't matter whether the no parking signs were there except for customers or not. They were already closed, and it really wasn't an impact on them.
Yeah.
I think this company out of Burnsville was just kind of underhanded. I think our towing companies in Upshur County would not have done this. And they the ones that should be upset at the guy out of Burnsville for coming in and sneaking in and striking while it's terrible that what they did. I can't understand why anybody would do this without a contract to start with. Somebody would, if I have a car in my driveway that I want towed, all I have to do is call up a towing company and say, come and get it, and they're going to come and get it. I really feel like I should have to sign a contract with that truck or that driver to have him tow that. I think it's just...
And will be known as a city or town, park at your own risk because you'll be in trouble.
Yeah, we're going to get some bad press on it. We already have.
And maybe home rule, Michael, might help. This might be something that would get a little bit more.
That's possible. And also, you cannot compare this to the apartments in Morgantown. I don't care what the guy at the Public Service Department says. Those apartments in Morgantown, everybody that goes there knows there's a certain amount of parking in that thing, and they all have their little signs out and everything. On game days, they know if they park there and they're not supposed to, they're going to be towed. That's a lot different than being right here where something happens once a year.
Well, the commonality, I think, or what I find exception in his response is that it was clearly marked. It seems like a revisionist kind of thing to know that, I mean, any of us that drove down through some of these places around the festival could see, I thought it was pretty gray to even be able to tell what was marked that way. I do not feel that it was clearly marked in any sort of way, so I certainly take exception with that as well.
One question, have you or will you distribute this to the Strawberry Festival folks as well?
Oh, I think it should be.
Yeah, we'll bring this
Yeah,
up.
absolutely.
Well, I think we should consider the fact of having some sort of an ordinance or resolution passed that might deal with specific issues.
And Dave, I want to make it clear, I really appreciate the effort, all the legwork you've put into putting this all together and everything, and
And Mr. Beller was cordial. I
Yeah, no, I have no question that's
I don't
right.
want to leave
Oh,
it
sure.
that he acted unprofessional or anything at all. He was very.
No, I just take
you know,
issue with some of his conclusions, but, I mean, but I certainly appreciate his position, I certainly appreciate your work on that, for
I
sure.
could be very cordial in passing the buck along to something.
Yeah.
Well, I still feel that anybody comes in and makes money here needs to come to get a business license. Because people, people come around to my shop and they're not allowed to be selling things. And I'll ask them, do you have your business license? No. I said, well, then you need to go next door and get a business license where you'll be able to go around selling stuff. And sometimes they show me a business license, sometimes they don't, so they leave. But, I feel that people should be able to make money off of people here without paying a business license like the rest of us do.
Every other business does, right?
Yes.
It's just a shady operation.
Well, we got a black eye on that weekend, unfortunately, because of this kind of activity. And it also can create a real, there could be some fisticuffs or some other things happening when people get really upset about getting their guitars towed away. I heard that happen at one location.
I'm curious to know if this company does it at every festival, if they have.
Different parts of the state?
Yeah, if they have showed up at Elkins, like, Alpert.
When I did a quick Google search of them, nothing jumped out at me in the first 3-4 pages that I looked at, but I don't know.
Well, I bet they're going all the way up to Morgantown.
Well, they approached the businesses. The businesses didn't call them initially, because it happened down in Sutton too.
Well, perhaps we ought to write a little letter to the different municipalities and different fairs and festivals around within 60, 70-mile radius of
Well, we have
Burnsville.
a link to mail list for all the cities and towns in the state, so I can post something out there.
That'd be nice.
Alert them as to what we've had issues with and they want to be.
Pam, our office was contacted by folks from the Three Rivers Festival in Fairmont. They thought they may have an instance of this, but it was a call I think Jessica Jenkins handled. But I don't know if that went any further, except for they were hearing that the issues we had in Buckhannon could happen up there, but I don't know what translated with that.
Okay.
Yes, sir. What else we gonna read?
You got anything else, Dave?
A couple other things.
Okay, go ahead.
The next, I don't think it's as controversial as the Curry towing thing, but a couple of days ago, I received an email in my stead as city attorney from Brooks Jones, who apparently had a discussion, I think is the way he phrased it, with a young man with a metal detector who was rooting through the grass area between the public sidewalk in front of Brooks's house and the city street. And first off, he said, I'm pretty sure that that's part of the city street right of way, but you all, meaning the city, expect me to maintain that, right? And I said, yes, we do. We would have to employ a whole extra mowing crew if we cut that little strip in front of everybody's house. And similarly, the sidewalks that are in front of everyone's homes, by state statute as well as municipal ordinance, we require people to keep it free of debris, snow, ice, wet leaves, all that kind of stuff. That's That's part of that thing that we are permitted to slough off onto the private residents, even though they don't own the property. So Brooks made his point with that. He said, now, my question is you know, we take nice care of this area that's not ours, just like our own lawn, plant flowers there, whatever we do, it's nice. And somebody comes along with a metal detector and starts rooting through the lawn. What can we do? What can we not do? I said I would take it up with City Council after I do a little research into things. And I have done some legal research. And first I would observe in these 3 handouts that I've given you, in one of them, it states that the United States Parks Commission prohibits metal detection throughout all national parks. You can't go rooting through a Civil War battlefield. I couldn't go over to Antietam or Gettysburg and look for cannonballs or bullets or anything like that.
And that goes as far as 4, 5, 6 miles outside those battlefields on private property too.
In addition to that, in the state of West Virginia, use of metal detection for purposes of actually taking things out of the ground is covered under the archaeological dig section of the code, which requires the obtaining of the appropriate permit depending upon who owns the property. You have to do that for state parks. The presumption is that given the ownership of the property by the city, those things that are within that municipal property are also owned by the municipality. I don't know how big of a deal you want to make out of this. I don't think that the Brooks Jones property is the only one that the young man was using the metal detection device with. If it's the council's position that we're going to enforce the municipality's rights under the law, then we should probably soon draft a letter and send it to the young man, just saying, look, we don't have a process to allow this. The property is ours. We don't want you to do this. Please refrain from doing it. That would probably be my recommendation to council. Number one, I wanted you to be aware of it. Number two, I wanted to see whether you wanted to assert the position that we can take before it's taken.
I'm glad you brought that up because I actually, when to come over here, I was driving down the street the other day, the parking lot, going into the back of the First Methodist Church. There were 2 of them down there doing it by the sidewalk. So it's more than one.
What are they looking for?
Anything.
Bullets, cannonballs, gold coins,
Diamond ring.
what could be all kinds of things.
Do you need a motion? We need a motion, Mayor, on something like that?
Let me add a couple of other just quick footnotes. One is the statement was made in at least Brooks's comments that if they found anything turning into the Historic Society, to this moment they have not turned anything in. Even if they did, it would actually degrade the value of whatever it is they found, because if you're truly doing an archaeological study, you would need to exactly map where that came from, how deep it was, what the location is, what was found near it, what was found above it, below it, all those kinds of things. So they're truly just, I think, looking for materials that they can turn around and sell for personal gain. It's not an activity that would be enhanced by by any historical society or preservation society to allow that. It would be one thing to pick up something off the surface, but it's entirely different as soon as you go below and start to have to dig into the ground to retrieve something. So and I would hate to think if you ran into some truly valuable material, which you're unlikely to Civil War material, because we were basically a march-through site, not a site where any real activity took place. But it could cause great chaos in terms of who owns what.
Well, there's a couple other things, while you mentioned it, Mr. Clemens, that jogged my, I wanted to add to this. There are people that have electrical lines, gas lines, other utility lines that, if you went down, you got a metal reed and you go down a foot in the ground and now you perforate a utility line, you could not only potentially damage the utility, but you could injure yourself. And the leaving maybe of part of what's dug up above the ground, and now somebody comes along and trips in the park or, wherever it is over something like that. I mean, I'm not trying to make a mountain out of the molehill, but there are reasons, I think, for us to.
When we have people install fences, when we have people that do any kind of digging, there's a procedure to call before you dig. And it doesn't matter whether it's a couple of post holes or whether it's a whole new building. This is not the day and age where you just go out and start sifting through somebody else's property. I think we got to put a stop to this as quickly as we can and certainly discourage the activity.
Now, private property owners want to allow this fellow or anybody else to do that. That's private property. They can allow that.
You should note that the state statute regarding this applies to private property as well, and the need to, one of the handouts that you gave us cited the state code section.
The archaeological stuff.
And then it doesn't apply just to public property or public parks, it applies to private property as well, and it assesses criminal penalties for its violation. I mean, at least the person doing this should at least be made aware of that. I mean, make sure that, anything that's...
Ask Walmart when they tried to locate a new store in Morgantown.
So we really don't need a motion, we already have
I'm just kind of looking around the council, get a nod of the head that a letter from me that I have Mr. Clemens, Mr. Davidson, and Mr. Doss look at before we send it. If that's okay, we'll do that.
If we had beaches, I could understand where people are constantly going there and losing stuff, and it's no damage done to dig in the sand 12 inches deep.
Yeah, exactly.
But we don't have that. And your point to me, David, about the utilities makes a bigger impact on me is why we should not allow this than actually letting the guy go out and dig. Because personally, I saw nothing wrong with him going to the city park and running his thing through like that and trying to find some coins and diamond rings or whatever like that. But I can see where the danger could have been.
And hope the press will report that the council discourages this and that that strip of land between the sidewalk and the street belongs to the city. Anything found there it's city property.
As well as the sidewalk.
And the sidewalk, it's city property. Anything you dig out of the ground belongs to us, belongs to the people of this city. And
Thank you.
There's West Virginia Code 20-7A-5. 20-7A-5 is what's referenced here, which pretty much says you can't do it without the property owner's permission. And we're not giving permission. Is that the consensus?
Right.
Yes.
You got it.
Okay.
A couple other quick things. The lease with the Armory National Guard, the Army National Guard on the Readiness Center and the Conference Center was finally signed off on by the Attorney General. I think we got it 2 weeks ago tomorrow. It was recorded a week ago Monday, and Tuesday we sent out the title opinion as Mr. Doss mentioned. If you ever want to look at it, it's in Deed Book 512, page 476. The residency ordinance for city employees, I've given you all another copy of the January 17 memo, and I would like to propose the following, if you don't have any objection. If you would allow me and Mr. Doss and Mayor Davidson to put together a draft ordinance that the council could then consider. We'll have something ready here in the next month for everybody to look at. You now are looking at the hiring of 2 police officers, possibly a new fireman. It's really something that both Matt and Mitch would like the council to address for them. So I hate to continue to be the squeaky wheel. But
I know not speaking for them personally, but given my newness to the council, I mean, is this an ordinance that they're really interested in seeing implemented?
Absolutely.
Because I mean, I really don't know how I feel about it, to be frank.
Well, first responders are basically sort of on call
Yeah.
24/7,
Don't understand that. That's why
365.
the-
And if you had somebody living in Morgantown and you needed them to, and there have been occasions where we've had people live uncomfortably far away in a first response position.
Another issue, particularly with fire, is staffing, because we quite frankly require quite a bit out of our paid firemen to show up when in fact they're not on duty because of the relatively low number of paid firemen plus the difficulty in obtaining volunteers. So if you don't have your paid firemen showing up and you're counting on all volunteers, we're either going to have to hire more paid firemen so that we can have a couple on duty all the time, or we're going to have to change the way we do business because it's a difficult staffing issue.
Well, I think in this ordinance, I threw out that you can, as Wheeling does, requires all of their employees to live in Ohio County. I don't know if that's something that we want to do, but the point is that some communities have taken even greater steps to include all employees. So again, that's not what I'm advocating, and Mitch and Matt are the only two that have had any serious discussion about advancing this with first responders, but they support.
And Ohio County's vastly different than the longest school bus ride in Ohio County is 10 miles.
It's a little county, big population, but little place.
Is there any particular reason why the existing police department policy that deals with this is not adequate? Or could be-
Residency requirements, according to the West Virginia Supreme Court of Appeals, must be established by ordinance.
Okay.
So we've had a practice that has been
Could be challenged.
in a policy that the police department has agreed to, but if push came to shove, it really needs to be established in an ordinance.
And it's not part of the fire.
That's well,
It is not. It is not.
I have a question about the 15-mile limit. 15 miles from the boundaries of the city of Buckhannon would take some of them out into Lewis County. So in other words, they could live in Lewis County.
That's correct. Or Elmore.
Or Elmore, or,
I think we were looking at traveled road. kind of
travel road or
scenarios.
air miles, either one. 15 air miles could mean 25 miles of traveled road.
That's right.
I think it'd be better just a 5-mile radius around the city of Buckhannon. You're talking about police officers that take their cruisers, talking about firemen that don't have cruisers, but they can get in fast to go to the equipment. I think a 5-mile limit outside the city limits.
The request was specifically made that if we want less than 15 miles due to the number of police officers and firefighters that already transcend that being that close, that there'd be a grandfather provision relative to
Well, I
those
agree. It
guys.
should be grandfathered,
So, we don't want to make
I
somebody.
agree with the grandfather position. For future hires, though, I believe we should center a 5-mile radius because even 5 miles out of Buckhannon is not an easy route to get to the station.
Depends which way you go, right?
Well, it depends on where you live, I guess, too, yeah.
Depends where the incident is, too.
Yeah.
Well, the other issue is how long does a new hire have? I think in Ohio County, again, the reason the Wheeling jumps out at you, there were 2 cases that went to the Supreme Court out of Wheeling. The first one, the Supreme Court shot down. The second one, they said, yeah, you guys got it right this time. So it was appealed both times by police officers. But the point is that it could be 6 months to relocate. You could give them a year, but you don't want it to be forever. You want to put a little teeth into it. That you have to do this when a relatively.
Even a circuit judge or a prosecutor has 6 months to relocate.
Yeah.
Exactly. So those are the kind of things that would be built into this draft. That if that's okay, is that, everybody comfortable with sort of an informal committee helping me? Do
Yeah,
that?
let's do that and get this moving
Prosecutors, if
on.
they.
What else you got, Dave?
A couple other quick things, and I'll shut up. The electrical ordinance, still working on it. There needs to be, and Mr. Dawson, I've talked about this, There've been a couple of changes on the employee handbook that we, as a council, we've already made some changes to, so it's coming up on a year since that was done already, so that, I think you can look forward to some suggested new language there. And believe it or not, we're only a year away, year and change, from expiration of the 5-year agreement with Sudden Lake. And we're supposed to have a meeting with them a year ago to discuss at the midway point of the franchise where we're going to go and what our concerns are in the whole bit. So I'll continue to pester. We can get a meeting set up sometime here in the next month or two before school starts again, and get Peter Brown and our Mr. Kellerman from Charleston to come up, and I'm sure they'll be wanting to lay it on thick, so you guys will give them another 5 years here soon. They specifically requested the last time that the franchise term not be 7 years, but that it'd be only 5 years, because they felt certain within that 5-year period, the state legislature was going to seize control of all municipal TV franchises, and that still has not happened. So, that's all I have, unless you all have questions for me.
Other questions for Dave? Thank you. This correspondence, the Public Service Commission, you have a letter in your packet, which I advise you to read. Simply states that they received a number of complaints from customers relative to their electric bills, and the letter advises us that that they are looking into it. If you get a contact from somebody that said they called the Public Service Commission or wrote to the Public Service Commission and they've had no response from the Public Service Commission, what can we do? The letter will inform you that the Public Service Commission is looking at the issue on the large scale, not on the individual scale. They are working on it and looking into the matter. Certainly, it's not in our hands.
Did you notice the signature on that letter?
No.
Little boy that grew up on Bardford Street, Rick Hitt.
Is that right?
Rick Hitt's son.
Is that right? I didn't know that. Okay, remember Rick. Nice little boy.
Now he's a lawyer.
Yeah, I know. Housing Authority financial audit, which you may want to take a look at. They're required to file that with us. Consent agenda is the minutes of the regular meeting, May 16, special meeting, May 30, building and wiring permits, payment of bills, create Buckhannon donation request for silent auction, Stockard Youth Center 5K, Jack Rowe resignation letter from the Zoning Board of Appeals, Jose Borsico resignation letter, Police Department, request for appointment Susan Beath to Gibson Board, appointment Dale Shannon to the Planning Commission. Entertain a motion to approve the consent
Got
agenda.
a question.
I have a question.
One, heard him first.
Ladies first.
Ladies first.
The E5,
Okay.
what's that about?
Yeah.
They've requested a option to come in and use one of the pavilions, and whoever would win the silent auction to come in, and the city would donate that free of charge. They're going to match it up with a donation of food service, so that they can, in their silent auction, which will be in July.
And I'm assuming the 5K run for the Stockard Youth Center is an approved route, improved time and everything?
Yes, and that's right before, if I'm not mistaken, that's the day before the Children's Festival.
Okay.
So it's a precursor to the Children's Festival in Stockard.
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Or second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further question or discussion? Not all in favor signify so saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. First reading, ordinance 375, junk storage. Dave, you've got the floor again.
Thanks, Mayor. This is with some modification, not a whole lot. The ordinance that was discussed at the last regular meeting a couple of 3 weeks ago. This is, it semi-deals with building and construction issues, or could be deemed to be. The state code says that if you deal with anything involving housing, you're supposed to have a legal ad 5 days at least before you take it up on its final reading. So if you pass this on first reading tonight, I'm going to recommend that we go to that relatively nominal expense of the legal ad in the paper and have a public hearing at your next meeting on June 18th. So let me just start into it. I'm not going to read this whole thing because you're already familiar largely with it. It's ordinance number 375 of the city of Buckhannon, and ordinance 1 prohibiting the storage, collection, parking, leaving, depositing, maintaining, reserving, putting aside for future use, permitting or allowing to remain on any porch, balcony, roof. Yeah, I did. It's captivating stuff. Other than a completely enclosed building or structure, certain materials, including but not limited to junk, rubbish, clutter, litter, debris, lumber and building materials, and upholstered furniture, mattresses, materials, and other similar products not normally intended, designed, built, or manufactured for outside use within or upon any property situated within any residentially zoned district within the corporate limits of the city of Buckhannon, and 2, establishing penalties for persons violating the provisions of this ordinance. What follows are some really very well-crafted whereas paragraphs, and then we get down into the articles. Article 1, it's a great title of this ordinance, the junk storage ordinance, not to be confused with the drunk storage ordinance. Yes. Findings of council track the whereas paragraphs. As we get down into the definitions, one thing that I added for clarity, oftentimes the primary offender won't necessarily be the property owner, although they have ownership when they rent premises out to somebody else. But it also allows the tenant to be cited, independent of the owner. So under owner, that language has been modified to include the tenant, or person rather, I'm sorry. Person means any individual, partnership, association, corporation, or entity of any other kind, including any tenant or lessee of real property. The prohibited acts section has remained the same as what we did last time. Under exclusions, under Article 5, Councilman Pugh didn't like the idea of firewood on the front porch. So 5A has been modified to read as an exclusion. This would be something that you could do. Firewood intended for consumption in a wood-burning stove, furnace, or indoor fireplace or outdoor patio fireplace located within or without a building located upon the subject premises, provided that all such firewood shall at all times be stacked and stored in an appropriate place, but in no event upon the front porch of any house or other residential structure. The stacking requirement that was added, somebody couldn't have a bunch of wood littered about their yard and say, oh, that's my firewood, that's my out. You know, yeah, they've got to stack it, number one, and it can't be stacked on the front porch. So that language was added. The enforcement section remained the same as we had discussed previously. Nothing changed with respect to penalties. There is a new section, Article 8, Establishment of Financial Assistance Program. The city administrator is hereby authorized and directed to develop a special fund to assist citizens of financial need in compliance with the provisions of this ordinance. All fines collected by the city pursuant to Article 7 hereof shall be dedicated to this special fund, together with any other funds as shall be budgeted and approved by the city council for this purpose. The proposed criteria for citizen participation in the fund, together with the application process, shall be submitted to the council by the city administrator on or before, that happens to be the second September meeting, September 19, 2013. A motion reflecting approval by the city council of the proposal shall be all that is required to effectuate the criteria and application process for the special fund. The proceeds of this special fund shall be expended exclusively for the payment of fees imposed by the city's solid waste transfer station for delivery of the materials prohibited by Article 4 hereof. In other words, if I'm a person of need, I can't make application to get $200 out of this fund and then hire Dwayne Carpenter to come over and do the cleaning up. You do your own cleaning up when it's taken to the transfer station, then there's an opportunity to apply for help with that part of the expense. Yeah. Any citizen cost associated with the actual collection, loading, and/or transfer of the prohibited materials to the transfer station shall be borne entirely by citizens endeavoring to comply with the provisions of this ordinance. The severability and effective date articles remain the same, so there you have it. I think I've added what needed to be added and what was requested to be added. This would be the first of 2 readings. You would take this up again in 12 days at your slightly moved up meeting of June 18th. It's my recommendation that you consider tonight on first reading ordinance 375.
Motion to approve on first reading.
So moved.
Motion made. Here a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion?
I got some comments also.
Got a question here from
Go ahead.
Tom.
No, well, Dave, go.
Dave first.
You know, I think the ordinance is good. What I'm concerned about is the lack of enforceability that we have in a lot of our ordinances. And, you know, if we pass something like this, somebody's going to be responsible for making sure these things are done. And I think we got some issues already that we do not, and Rich, I know that this is primarily one of your responsibilities and you got so much on your plate, but I was aware that, I think at the last consolidated board meeting, we sent 20 letters out to individuals stating that they needed to do certain things with their property. I think we started to specify specificity as far as what needed to be done. But I'm concerned about the timelines when we follow up. If we have somebody that can do it on a more regular basis than what's being done now, and I think this ordinance is going to heap more responsibility on people already that may not have the time. So I think when we look at these kind of ordinances, we need enforceability. We need to do it on a timely basis. And I don't think we can get that done now. So that's a comment I want to make about the ordinance. I think it's adding a lot more stuff to our plate, which I think is fine, but we got to get it done. And I think we have a real problem with that. I mean, I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but I get a lot of complaints that, gosh, you do things and you pass ordinances, but things still aren't getting done.
Well, go ahead, Dave. If you could just see what is on my street down there, you would know why some of this stuff has to be enforced. I mean, our property values have gone down considerably on Barber Street because of certain residences that quite frankly don't give a darn about how their places look. Old cars, junk cars, they've got radiators and water heaters and stoves all packed out by the side of the house. How are we supposed to do that? And if I ever want to sell my house, I've taken a 20% loss right there. So it's a problem, and I think if we have the ordinance, then there is a possibility of having it being able to be enforced. There are a couple of other places around town that I've seen in the last week that are also health hazards. We've got the problem that we can effectively take care of if it's a rental property. We have nowhere to go if it's personal property. And I think this is going to take care of some of that issue on the personal property. And I know there's going to be a lot of people out there that's going to be upset because we're infringing on their rights as to what they can do in their property. But they're infringing on our rights as to taking a 20% property loss because of the way they're letting the junk pile up around their property. Not to mention the fact it's a health hazard. I have seen rats come out of that place on the corner of Ritchie and Barber. I've seen the cockroaches there when they dump the garbage trucks.
Well, Mr. Moore's been talking about this for, you know.
Mr. Moore has, and this should be named Mr. Moore's bill.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not against the ordinance, I'm for it, but what I want to suggest is that, you know, maybe we need to, we're building up a fund that's going to be pretty substantial by the end of this fiscal year. Maybe we need a part-time person to really, for lack of a better word, sort of be a bulldog to make sure these things are being done. Because we don't do it on a timely basis now. And if you don't follow through with these ordinances, people just sort of laugh at you. And, I mean, we look like a bunch of silly people up here sometimes.
Yeah, we do. But
And, well, we do.
Tom had a...
I just had one maybe request on the carefully drafted whereas clauses. I just note the second one talks about, the last line of the second whereas clause says, and further depreciating the value of their own property, meaning property belonging to members of council, as well as surrounding properties. And I don't know, I mean, it would be a problem to maybe change that language a little bit to where it doesn't appear that maybe it makes it look like we're considering this ordinance really out of our own self-interest.
Yeah, it's not intended.
It's
to
not
be
meant to be
council, it's the person.
It's supposed to be-
In other words,
Just the
the guy on Barber Street lets his yard go.
His property, maybe
He's depreciating the value of his own
of
property.
the, maybe that could be worded
Okay,
differently.
'cause I mean, it says council determines to be detrimental and obstructive and so on and so forth, and further depreciating the value of their own property as well as surrounding, well, okay, I see where you're.
Further depreciate.
All I'm saying is that if we're anticipating some public heartburn over this ordinance, I think, language to that effect might give people some, maybe unintended ammunition to say, oh, these guys, all they're concerned about is the value of their own property, and
Change
it
it
says it
to
right here.
value of the property of the owner.
Well, all it has to say is,
Or
if you just
community.
strike their own property as well as, and it just says depreciating the value of surrounding properties.
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah, that-
accomplishes, and I would move to amend the whereas clause to reflect that change.
Okay, give me the specific language.
So that, where you strike the words, their own property as well as, so where it would read, and further depreciating the value of surrounding properties. And is that clear?
Yeah, just strike.
You make an amendment, a motion to make that amendment?
Motion to amend that whereas clause.
I'll second that.
It just,
Makes it clear.
is
well,
clear.
not only that, it takes away an ambiguity that makes the council look like, hey, all we're interested in is the value of our own properties, and that's why we're passing this ordinance. And I don't think that I don't strike it, and I move to strike because I don't think it's the case that we're interested in the value of our own properties. I think we are concerned about the beauty and the value of all the properties in these neighborhoods that are being affected.
Well, my property is a block and a half away from that
My
particular.
property is I live 2 houses away from that guy on Fifth Street. I know exactly, my kids walk by them, my 4 kids walk by that house, or 4 of my kids walk by that house every day to and from school. And
And
it's just-
Winston Moore has been on me since July of last year, so.
But we don't have a system in place now.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about this unless we, as this council, do something.
Well, Dave, let me speak to your concern just a little bit, but I want to, we've got to get this meeting back in order here. We have a motion to approve the ordinance. We now have a motion to make this amendment to the ordinance, so I need a second to that.
I seconded it.
So the motion's made and seconded to amend 375 as mentioned. I'd call for a vote on that. All in favor of amending that particular section of the ordinance, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we still have, that's approved. Now we still have the motion of.
I'll call for the
before
question.
it's that. Now, I want to speak, man. I'm not going to let you.
Unless you speak.
We're not going to make a lot of money off this. We're not going to have a big fund. Michael, how much money have we put in the coffers fining people for junk cars in yards when we did that?
Well, it's not putting any money into that.
Hardly any. People moved their cars. We got rid of all kind of cars because did we ever cite anybody? No. So I don't know whether we'll cite anybody or not. I think this makes Rich's job easier. Now, he'll maybe slap me behind the head here, but I think this makes his job easier because without this ordinance, we don't have the tools to make the private property owner clean up specific items. You know, we sent these letters out that said, here are the things we want you to clean up. These are the things we want you, not just clean up your property, but cut the grass, tear down that old fallen down fence, move those garbage cans back, those kinds of things. I think this ordinance gives specificity to what we're not going to permit. And I think Rich, am I wrong?
No, I think it'll certainly help because we haven't had anything that deals with front porches before. We haven't had anything to deal with a lot of the items that are in here. You know, to some extent, I think it's a shame that we've got to do this to begin with, but I guess I grew up in a different era. I mean, it seems a shame that we have to ask people to mow their lawns or to have their grass cut. But on the other hand, the councilman called me earlier this week and said, you know, the grass is out of hand on this particular lot. I go in and check, find out who the owner is. Well, it's an owner of an individual in Pittsburgh. And I check another piece of property, it's an owner of somebody that's in North Carolina. You know, for the most part, and I've got some repeat offenders because I got a database of every issue, every piece of property that's ever been, that I've ever sent a notice to. But, you know, there's a few that are over and over and over again, the same folks. They get my annual letter. But, you know, it just amazes me that people will let their lawns get as bad as they are. The one thing I need, and I was gonna save this for later, but since we're on the topic, I need the help of the residents. For many cases, I can't see the backyards. I'm not allowed just to traipse in a yard, and walk around and look. I can only stay on public property. So if you've got a neighbor that's, you know, maybe you're mowing the front lawn, but nobody's touching the backyard, you know, let me know. If you've got that junk car parked out behind you, you know, let me know. Now, I've got a couple of cases I've been working on for some time. We just can't find the owner. The Department of Motor Vehicles, I mean, the addresses come back. We send registered letters, they come back. And it's about 30 days from the time I send a letter till the post office returns it to me saying unable to contact, you know, and so that's a 30-day delay. Some of these things don't happen very fast. We maybe like to have a little more immediate turnaround. It's not always easy to do. Just finding things can be difficult, but I certainly think this ordinance is going to help.
Well, this ordinance would allow you to go to the renter or the less, you know,
Yeah.
make them responsible.
Although,
for it,
quite
too.
frankly, most of the time, the ones that I have the most difficulty with, beside the out-of-town owners, are the owner occupants.
Yeah.
That they're willing to live that way. Those are the ones that you have difficulty convincing. Now, Michael Dawson and I have talked about this. In some states, you can just go in, clean it up, assess a fee, and put it on their taxes, and they have to pay. We don't have that capability in the state of West Virginia.
Not yet.
We've got to go and file a lien, of which we may or may never see that funds. So
Home rule may allow us to do.
may allow us to do
we'll-
that.
we'll-
That's a big plus as far as home rule in my book.
Call for question.
Question's been called. All in favor of passing the ordinance, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Moving right along.
So, I'm sorry, did you say the public hearing on this would be at the next city council meeting or just before it?
It'll be just before.
It'll be at 7 o'clock.
Because, you know, if we learned anything from the smoking thing, you know, it's like speak now or forever hold your peace. And I just hope that people understand that, you know, this is your time to speak
Right.
your mind on this, not after the ordinance is passed.
We would not be
Big headline.
required by
Yeah, I think we would.
code
Yeah.
I think we are.
because it raises money.
It's
Well-
housing.
You know, now, we're off of this one. I have a, I'll go ahead. I'll get it in my
Well,
comments.
that brings us to comments and announcements.
Okay, here we
Jump
go.
right in there.
Which side are you gonna start on?
No, well, he's on the top of the list. So he's Ron first. You get the last shot.
We're talking about fees and fines and everything going into a special fund. I think we should consider on the smoking ordinance that we passed, the ban, that some fees and some fines from that would go into some sort of a productive, something about keeping people from smoking, from youth smoking, some educational projects or something like that, for the fines and everything from the smoking ordinance. Whatever we have to do to that in the future, I think that should be considered sometime. I have one question about a bill here this evening, $700 for detailing 7 police cruisers for the Strawberry Festival. Any explanation on that from anybody that knows anything?
Matt is not here.
I know, but
I think, and I said to you before the meeting, I've seen a number of times where we have cars detailed, and I think that periodically they have the cars detailed. It's probably good maintenance.
Well, my feeling, Mayor, on this is the fact, and I, in no way I'm saying anything against the police. We have a fine police department here, but they also have a little extra in being able to drive their cars home, keep them with them at home and everything, so they'll be ready. They're not utilizing their personal vehicles. I think at least once a year, those young gentlemen out there could at least detail the inside of their cruisers or something like that, and keep us from spending $100 a cruiser. That, that's money that can be put into their other budget someplace. And they can run their cruisers through the car wash like the rest of us do. My views.
We'll drag the hose out.
Yeah,
That it?
that's it. That's it. Yeah.
Tom?
I would just note that today is June the 6th, the 69th anniversary of D-Day invasion of Normandy, most consequential day of the most consequential war in our country's history since the Revolutionary War. And just remember the veterans of that conflict who are leaving us every day. Both my grandfathers fought in that conflict, and both passed on. And that's it.
Rich?
We had an individual resign from the Zoning Board of Appeals this evening. That gives us an opening on the Zoning Board of Appeals. We had one individual step forward from the community that wants to be on the Planning Commission. Just a reminder to folks, if they're interested in serving on any of the city committees, that they would like to express that interest, give me a call or give City Hall a call and leave name and phone number, what you might be interested in. If you're not sure what you're interested in, we'll call you back and see what openings we got. Will not affect your tax status whatsoever.
Yeah.
Donate your time.
Not a bit. Not a bit.
That's all.
Okay. John?
Someone was at the hearing the other day expressed interest in serving on the zoning board of appeals.
Well, good. Good.
And we still need also a city appointment to the CVB.
Okay.
Just wanted to mention that.
Well,
I didn't hear that one, sorry, John.
City appointment.
City appointment?
We have someone that's
We have an opening for the health department. There's lots of things.
Lots of possibilities.
That's all I have.
Pam?
I'm glad that we have a permit in here for the dust collection system. I've been getting a lot of complaints about that from residents over on Gate Street, from coming across the river, from the split rail. And I'm glad to see that they're planning on working on that again.
Yes, I talked to or filed a complaint with the EPA and understand the local residents has filed EPA a concern for increased sawdust recently.
Thank you, Pam. Dave?
I agree with what Tom said about the D-Day. My father was in D-Day and was wounded the second time in his service to the country. And there was I don't know if anybody's ever seen the movie, but it's an interesting movie to watch also. I have a couple comments, and Michael Doss covered it on the consolidated board, but I wanted to state it also again tonight, and I hope the paper or the whatever covers it pretty well. One, we have appointments to committees and to boards, as Rich indicated. There are, I believe, 6 or 7 that are paid positions, which I'd never realized until about a couple months ago. We pay $200 a month for these positions. I think we shouldn't be paying that much. I think it's not appropriate. It's too much. When you talk about trying to save money for the city, that's one area I think we should look at for the future. I'm also concerned that some of these individuals, both on boards and committees, have been involved with that particular board or committee for 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years. I think we need turnover. I've indicated when I ran for council last time was my final term. I do think we need to look at our bylaws and charter or ordinances to have term limits, consecutive term limits. I think, 2 or 3 years or 4 years, what have you. I don't know what the appropriate timeline is, but I don't think it's appropriate to have people on boards or committees for 15 or 20, 25 years. We need people to step up to the plate and participate in the city. And I think, Rich, I don't know, is it on the city website as far as who the paid positions are, not the individuals, but the positions, what boards are paying and so forth?
No.
Because I think many, many residents aren't aware of that. And, the commitment is at a board meeting itself anywhere from half an hour to 1 hour, hour and a half sometimes. You have to read material and so forth in preparation or afterward, but I think people would have the opportunity to say they're interested, especially in the paid board positions. I also made a comment about I had received a call about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I've had a number of individuals that have said the same thing. I think next council meeting or the meeting in July, we should ask the officials of the Fraternal Order of Police to make a statement in regard to their involvement with individuals calling us on the phone asking for a donation for the Children's Fund. I got that call. It was referenced to the FOP. I don't know if the member if he was a member himself, but I asked, well, if I give X amount of dollars, how much goes to the Children's Fund? He says 50%. And I said, well, how much do you receive for making the phone call? And the person hung up on me. I've had a number of people say the same thing. So I think that organization ought to come to City Council and explain exactly, do they have any involvement in it or not? But I think the paper ought to put something out there so residents are aware of what's going on. I also have considered having Jerry Arnold make a stop sign for me so I can take my lawn chair in the middle of Hart Street in Smithfield to sit right in the middle. It's amazing the number of people that are just blowing through that stop sign. It's a 4-way stop, and how fast they're going down Smithfield towards the city. It's unbelievable. And I think we're having a lot of those kind of issues in our town right now. I really think people need to observe the stoplights, the street lights and so forth, and pay attention because somebody's going to get hurt very tragically someday.
It's not just on Main Street.
Well, as I said, I live on Arnold and Smithfield on the corner, and there's a 4-way stop there, and I guarantee you there's at least 10 to 15 people that blow through that stop sign every day. Don't pay any attention to it. And I talked to the mayor about sitting in there maybe someday, and he said I'd probably get run over, but, that's all the comments I have.
Just a clarification on Dave Thomas's mentioning of the boards. There are 4 boards that receive compensation: Consolidated Public Works, Waste Board, Water Board, and Sanitary. All their boards receive no compensation.
And I think we need to take a serious look at that for the future. I think the compensation is not appropriate. That's my position anyway. But we've talked about at some point in time needing to take a serious look at our bylaws and charter, and I think that's something that we'll look at. And we ought to have term limits ourselves up here as far as consecutive terms, both the council and the mayor and the recorder.
And Ron, I'll inquire about the detailing of police cruisers because I know the fire department does not do that.
I know that.
So,
I know that.
Sure.
I have one more thing I've forgotten here. Somebody came up to me 2 weeks ago and asked if I would bring up about collection of grass this summer. Currently, I think it's only every other week that they will pick up grass from your lawn and lawn debris and stuff. And this person said that she mows her lawn, her mother's lawn, and a vacant lot next to that, and that she she always has it out there to be picked up, but she said 2 weeks is too long of a time to let grass lay around in a black bag because it gets smelly and everything, and she's wondering what the possibility of it is of collecting grass and lawn debris on a weekly basis every Friday. Just something I told her I would bring up. And what do you guys think about that? And Lee?
I'll be curious to see what it would cost to do that.
Yeah.
I don't have any.
We do that in the fall anyhow with leaves. It's not like it's unheard of, but that's actually the first time I've heard a request for the summer. Most people, I think, either have mowers or just puts it back.
And you can't put it in a black bag, it's gotta be recyclable.
Yeah,
Well,
you can't do
in a
black
bag, I was
anyhow.
just saying a black bag. That's what I put
It has to be recyclable.
Yeah.
But it's,
First and third Fridays, I believe.
the
is
first and third
schedule.
Fridays, I can understand that, mowing every week and 3 huge lawns, how that could be a problem for certain individuals. I don't know of anybody else, but told her I'd bring it up. Is there a possibility if anybody calls in or anything like that, that you would make a special pickup, or they could put it out with their normal garbage?
They have to
wouldn't
pay.
work with it.
It's picked up, it's not picked up by the waste department, it's picked up by the street department.
Okay.
So it's an entirely different crew and different schedule.
It used to be done every year, years ago. I mean, every week, years ago, and then we changed it to every other first and third Friday.
Jerry's the one to ask about what.
Michael
I don't know
will.
what,
I'll inquire with Jerry.
Okay,
Michael will
and
investigate.
since we're on the streets, the street sweeper. I can't see us doing a heck of a lot of good sweeping around cars and going in and out like this. We need to have some kind of a schedule made someplace. This might be a Jerry thing too, I don't know.
Now, we've talked about
That
this.
certain streets are
different times in the
parked
past.
off-street certain days of the week or something like Elkins does it. When I lived in Elkins 100 years ago, they did that. I had to tie my horse and buggy to the backyard. But it's something that might be considered too, because it is nice for the street sweeper, and he does a fantastic job when there are no cars in front of your house, of getting right up to the curb and sweeping all the debris and
Yeah, it
the
cleans up
dust
real
away. So if we want to have clean streets, I think maybe we should consider some sort of an ordinance for each, or not an ordinance, but perhaps a schedule of when the streets are going to be done, and request that people have their cars parked off-street during those hours.
We'll look into it. We've studied that before.
We do that with the downtown, obviously, they'll go
Yeah.
out a little earlier in the morning to get the downtown, there's no one there, but it's kind of a good point. I know this is council discussions, but it's something that I've noticed this week, and I'm not gonna name the street that it's on, but there was an individual who stuck couches and a love seat and a chair stacked beautifully on top of each other, beautifully.
Still there.
Being
Still there.
sarcastic. Now, I inquired with our office about that individual, because we pick up bulky goods Fridays. And that individual at that address had not called our office. One of my staff assured me that they would be calling, they're just late. But I want to let people know, we will pick that up, but they need to call City Hall.
Right.
We talk about cleaning up junk or whatever, and that kind of sounds
Well,
like
that
a council
individual
member
works
here.
at Wesley.
Won't mention where it's at, but.
And there's good condition Salvation Army with that.
But if they would
Especially
call,
not after the rain.
It's not.
all they have to do is call City Hall, and maybe there's something they could put in the paper, and it'd really be nice if maybe they could put it out at less than 24 hours before we pick it up, so it's not looking beautiful on the street. I'm sorry, I'm probably sounding like a
Put
council.
it out on the first Monday, we pick it up on second Friday.
Yeah.
Don't do
Yeah.
that.
Just gotta call the office.
And you gotta call City Hall for Thursday at 12 noon to get your stuff picked up on
Yeah.
Friday.
They had plenty.
I called at 2:30 and they said I was too late.
So he left it sit out for 2 weeks.
No, I'm keeping this bags in the garage still.
It's covered up and stuff.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion, we enter into executive session under 698-4 for litigation.
So moved.
And second.
Second.
All in favor, signify so by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no, the ayes have it. Good night, folks.